Nick speaking, and welcome to this video. Right, this is the Necron learning curve, and today we're going to have a look at the Royal Court. Now, I know I said in the previous video I'm going to do videos for all the different Harbingers, and I am going to do that. But I thought this would be a good starting point, just to have a chat actually about the Royal Court itself, and maybe some of the rules and how it works. Because it can be fairly confusing. Even I get confused sometimes. Okay, so the Royal Court basically is a unit which is unlocked when you take certain characters from the HQ section. So basically it's a HQ choice that's unlocked when you take things like Imitech or a Overlord, and then you can take that without actually taking up a HQ force organisation slot. So effectively you can have two HQs, and then you can have potentially two Royal Courts if you take two HQs that unlock them. Now the composition of the Royal Court: 0 to 5 Necron Lords, which is these, and 0 to 5 Necron Cryptics, which are those. Now my first mistake actually that I made was that I thought that meant you can have up to 5 minis, but in actual fact you can have 10 minis within a Royal Court, maximum of 5 Lords and 5 Cryptics. So you can have 10 minis in each unit, and then what you can do is you can split the models from the Royal Court to be assigned to different units. Now there are selected ones that you can actually do that, so it's Warriors, Immortals, Light Guard and Death Marks. Unfortunately not Flayed ones, because I'd love to have had a Cryptic with my Flayed ones. Well, not a Cryptic but a Lord actually. But anyway, that I can't do that. Okay, now there are a few criteria to that, in that if you have a Royal Court, only one model from that Royal Court can join one unit. In other words, you can't assign two models to one unit unless you have two Royal Courts, in which case you can have two Cryptics, one from each Royal Court, joining that particular unit. Now, bearing in mind you can only unlock two Royal Courts if you take the two HQ choices. So if you had an Overlord and a Destroyer Lord, like I suggested in the last video, then you can only have one Royal Court. So you have to bear that in mind when you're selecting your choices. Now the Necron Lords are pretty standard. We'll cover those in a separate video. The Cryptics are the slightly confusing ones. So when you take a Cryptic, you have the option to upgrade them into a Harbinger, and there's 5 different Harbingers available, and they all have different staffs and potentially different war gear that you can take. But there is another criteria on that. You can have as many Harbingers as you like within one Royal Court. So if you have 5 Cryptics, they can all be the same Harbinger, or you could have maybe 3 of one and 2 of another one, etc. That's not a problem. But you can only take one piece of war gear per Royal Court. So in other words, if you had, say, a Harbinger of Despair, you could take a Veil of Darkness on one of those Cryptics only. You couldn't have 2 Veil of Darknesses unless you had 2 Royal Courts. So that again is one of the things you have to consider when you're choosing these. But yes, you can have as many Harbingers of the same type in the same Royal Court. That's not a problem. But you can only have one of those pieces of war gear on one of the minis. And of course, when you split them out, like I said, you can only put one of those Cryptics in one unit of each, like Warriors or whatever you're assigning them to. So that is something else to bear in mind. Okay, I think that's most of the rules covered that we know about. There is another rule which is there but not there, if you get my drift. So let me just explain that. So it doesn't actually say it anywhere in the Necron Codex, in the updates or anywhere, but effectively when you assign, say you assign a Cryptic to a squad of Warriors, the way it describes it in the Codex is that, where are we? Has the option of being split off his unit and assigned to lead a Royal Court, and can join this unit in this manner. So effectively you're doing exactly the same as, say, a Space Wolf army would do with their Wolf Guard. in that the guard would split off, go say with a grey hunter pack, and effectively becomes a grey hunter, like a sergeant of that unit. So effectively he becomes a part of that troops use. And that's effectively what a cryptic does. So the cryptic will join a squad of warriors, and effectively the cryptic then becomes a troops choice. Now obviously there are arguments that that isn't the case, but there's no FAQs or anything like that regarding that. So that's up to you and your gaming group. But the way I see it, that when that cryptic joins that squad of warriors, he does definitely become troops. So that's just something to bear in mind. If you're left with just that cryptic standing, remember he can get up by himself with the ever-living rule, even if there's no other warriors around. Potentially that cryptic then is scoring. Okay, so that is the Royal Court. Let's move on now onto the Necron Lord within the Royal Court and have a look at him. More to come.